Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. White media is introducing some new civil rights leaders. Spoiler, they're the same as the old leaders. They just keep on beating that dead, rotted, desiccated horse. The white media is always treating, or rather subjecting us to a brand new story about the new black leaders. Always some new black leaders emerging, fools who ain't leading anyone because nobody's following them. You know what this reminds me of? About a month ago, I told you about an article put out by Harvard's Nieman Foundation entitled, "Meet the New Black Press." Now, they ain't never said black press in a dang long time. I guess they had to call it that because new black media was already taken. And who was this new black press that they were talking about? What exciting and interesting new outlets was Harvard going to introduce the black community to? The Griot, the Root, and Blavity. I'm not making that up. That's who this Harvard website said was the new black press. Now, the Griot's been around since 2009. That's 12 years. The Rot is only a year older, founded in 2008. Blavity has been polluting the internet since 2014. None of these clowns are new. They aren't introducing us to anyone we haven't seen and haven't been trying to avoid. But maybe that's the point. These sock puppet groups have failed to get any traction. I told you about how the Rot's own editor-in-chief, Danielle Belton, jumped ship so she could go work at the Huffington Post. Now keep in mind, this article mentioned Danielle Belton. It was posted July 2020, and only 8 months later, Danielle Belton decided to bail out. She left the Rot so fast, the New York Times didn't even need to update her photo. Perhaps they should have entitled this article, "Say Goodbye to the New Black Press." Yeah, you just got a collection of nobodies and self-important morons who are desperately hoping that they can burnish their resume with some make-work articles on a website and get themselves a job working for the white media, which is what they really want. And it makes total sense. They don't drive the discourse, not in the greater society, and certainly not among black people. But this is the white media attempting to dictate to us who is legitimate. They figure if some white mouthpiece like Harvard or CNN or MSNBC says it, then black people will see it and say to themselves, "Ooh, the white media is legitimizing these folks, so it must be true." So it's no surprise that MSNBC was doing their part to prop up the dead, putrid husk of the NAACP, this zombie organization still shuffling around with white supremacy, feeding it the blood of infants, I suppose. Apparently, that do-nothing organization is having someone installed as the head of their legal defense and educational fund. And who is it? Well, she's basically a household name. It's that amazing person who's gotten so much done to punish white supremacy, Janai Nelson. Oh, come on, don't tell me you haven't heard of Janai Nelson before. Well, I gotta be honest with you, I hadn't heard of her either. And also, why am I supposed to be all hot and bothered that the NAACP's Legal Defense and Educational Fund's getting a new leader? I didn't know that they even had an organization as such, mainly because they haven't done a doggone thing. Can you think of any wins that the NAACP's Legal Defense and Educational Fund has had? When in the world have they brought their fund to bear to punish white supremacy to help black folks? The NAACP has no power, they have no heft, and they don't get anything done. But the white media is still trying to see if there's any mileage to be had from the black baby boomers, I suppose. Seems every few weeks we're being subjected to the white media attempting to crown one of their bootlicks as our new leaders or spokespersons. These people who every time they get in front of the microphone, the first thing they do is talk about immigrants, LGBT issues, feminism, the patriarchy, but they don't spend a lot of time talking about black people. The NAACP never mentions the word black without also adding "and brown" to it. You have never and will never see La Raza or any Latino group doing that. They represent their own interests, and they don't include anyone else in their discussion. But this is what the NAACP has been reduced to. Young black people won't fool with them. Their support base is dying out. They need to get some new blood and new money from somewhere, so they're attempting to pivot away from pretending to be about black people. Seems now the operative word in NAACP is going to be the colored part. And by colored, that apparently means anyone who isn't classified as white, except for white LGBT people, and white immigrants, and Latinos, many of whom identify as white, even when they clearly aren't, and I suppose also for white women if they can manage it. In these serious times, when anti-black racism is at an all-time high and white supremacy is on the march, we got the NAACP waddling into the room and telling everyone that all lives matter, all people are oppressed, all issues are important. The NAACP rarely says white supremacy, they just stick to the more general term of racism. But of course, they never point out who it is who suffers from racism in America, and that's one group, black people. In their putrid attempts to try to pretend as if, oh, we're making racism into an issue for everyone, that everyone needs to get involved. Yeah, except for most of the people in this country benefit from anti-black racism, and they have absolutely no interest in seeing it stopped. And apparently that includes the NAACP as well. And they're not alone. This is how you get Al Sharpton running around on MSNBC. Oh yeah, they're not willing to bring up Tawana Brawley anymore. They're cutting Reverend Al some slack because all it cost them was just a regular gig on MSNBC, and why, he's a nice little house pet mascot for them. They've completely and thoroughly domesticated this previously loudmouth rhetorician. Now he's less useful than nothing. Seems all these clowns are trying to figure out some way that they can basically be a general all-purpose civil rights organization or civil rights advocates without having to be specific, especially not where black people are concerned. We can be specific to everyone else, but black people, well, we want to go beyond race. We're gonna talk about fighting racism by going beyond race. This pathetic attempt to deracinate themselves is coming too little, too late. But it does show that the black media is rising. The shills and sock puppets are desperately scrambling to gain something resembling relevance. We've taken control of the discourse. All that mealy-mouthed buck dancing isn't fashionable anymore. What the rot, the griot, Blavity, and the NAACP are finding out is that the white media can give you exposure, but they cannot give you legitimacy. They played the game, and they're now finding out that they lost. The black media doesn't want what the bootlicks want, and the majority of intelligent black people, the ones who are actually going to get off their behinds, they don't want what these sellouts want either. We've educated more and more black people about what these tools' true mission really is. We focus them on making sure the economic and political discourse stays within a framework of black, and to not divert it or dilute it by trying to shoehorn in everyone else, because nobody else is trying to make us part of their agenda or their discussion. When these other groups are out advocating for their tangibles, they don't mention us, and when they get their tangibles, they don't mention us. We're not even an afterthought to all these other groups. These are clearly the rules. They have always been the rules. But the difference now is that you've got almost 3 generations now who are on the same page that as far as we're concerned, we're not going to pretend as if the rules don't exist. Everyone has to speak for themselves. That's just fine by us. We've got these phony black mouthpieces who the white media keeps hoping we'll be dumb enough to follow, talking that allies mess and acting like it's still the 1920s. Back when black people were still believing that the white leftist line, that it wasn't about black and white, it was about workers versus managers, socialists versus capitalists. That's the same garbage that you're getting from the NAACP today. Same thing that you're getting from these chuckleheads who you see on CNN. These individuals who you never heard of. We're going to talk to anonymous moron over here who nobody has a blog on somewhere, some website that you never heard of. And they start giving you the old class difference line. It's about class, about class. H. Rap Brown addressed that one 50 plus years ago. That class distinctions is an illusion that black people simply cannot afford. The problem for black people is not income. The problem for black people is not class. Bill Cosby has more money than Les Moonves, the former chairman of CBS, more money than Bill O'Reilly, more money than any of these white men who have been substantively accused of sexual misconduct. And yet, who was it who wound up going to prison? Who was it that the prosecutors and the politicians made a cause celeb and a jihad out of going after him personally by name? Oh, there is no prosecutor who's going to say, I'm going to be the one who locks up Bill O'Reilly. There's no prosecutor who's going to say, Les Moonves has been accused of all this. We're going to go ahead and put him on the stand. At the very least, we're going to put Julie Chen on the stand. Shame on these women protecting these sexual predators and sticking up for them. Nobody's doing that, and they're not going to. Because it ain't about how much money you got. It's about a system that defines being classified as white above all other things, and you got to make sure that people see and experience the material benefits of being classified as white. And you also got to make sure that there are material deficits and harms and consequences that go along with being black. You got to make sure you enforce that too. So Bill Cosby's class was higher than these white men, but it ain't class that determines what happens to you under white supremacy. And that's the reason why whenever you have these millennial and Gen Z chuckleheads who pop up on MSNBC or CNN or Headline News, you get some quote from in the New York Slimes, we don't pay them any never mind. We see the scam and they keep doing the exact same thing. They don't have any new plays. It's the exact same playbook. As soon as you get in front of the camera, we immediately start talking about patriarchy and toxic masculinity, and we need to see these social constructs torn down. It's all about it's all one big thing, you see. A couple of weeks ago on my Twitter, I lampooned Brittany Cunningham, a former Obama advisor for his police advisory committee, and she was, right before the Rittenhouse verdict, she was talking that gibberish about patriarchy and male privilege and class structure, all that, and bell hooks.
We cannot separate patriarchy from white supremacy, from heteronormativity, from all of these kind of dominant structures. We know that white supremacist patriarchy.
White supremacist patriarchy, huh? Remind me again who it was who taught Kyle Rittenhouse to be shooting guns and taught him all of this hatred of people who weren't white, and who it was who chaperoned him across state lines and carried him back home again and defended him every day ever since. I don't think that was his father. I think that was his mother, wasn't it? White supremacist patriarchy indeed, yeah, because as we all know, white women don't ever push or promote white supremacy. Here we are in 2021, and this Cunningham woman is still trying to push that 1970s Alice Walker, Angela Davis, Toni Morrison, colorblind sisterhood crap, that old all women are sisters routine. And she was thinking to herself that she's sounding good too. But apparently somebody must have hipped her to what was really going on, because a couple of weeks later, she was singing a different tune. After the Rittenhouse verdict, they brought her back on to throw in her 2 cents, but I couldn't help but notice that this time, she wasn't talking so much of that gibberish. All of a sudden, she was toning it down.
You're right. Self-defense on its face is not white supremacy. But traveling across state lines with an AR-15 to intimidate people is absolutely white supremacy. We know what this is. He traveled to a place where Black people and our allies were protesting for the dignity of Black life. And because he took issue with that, he decided to grab an assault rifle, and now 2 people are dead and 1 is permanently disabled. Black people and anybody who knows American history in this country know what white domestic terrorism looks like.
Oh my. No mention of bell hooks this time? No mention of heteronormativity this time? No gender studies word salad, I see. And she's not saying white supremacist patriarchy. Yeah. When you want to be relevant, you gotta put your BS black feminist horse crap talking points on hold. And that's not the only example. She was also talking to Jonathan, putting on his cape heart on that little side show that he's got, and talking about the Ahmaud Arbery murder verdict. And she wasn't talking any of that gender studies garbage either. See, as the black media, we don't change what we say. Everybody else has to change what they say. Because we're right, they're wrong, and there's no need for us to alter what we're saying, because what we're saying reflects reality. What they're saying reflects what they hope this or that white producer or executive or show host might want to hear. Well, black empowerment is not about appealing to the sensitive sensibilities of the dominant society. Black empowerment is about toppling white supremacy. It's about making all of these clowns uncomfortable, because their comfort comes at the cost of our safety, security, and prosperity. And we've allowed that to go on for too damn long. And there's too many black folks who are only too happy to bite their tongues whenever they're in front of the cameras, because they're all looking for a job. They'll instantly switch from wagging their fingers, sorta, at this or that white producer to buck dancing and getting on their knees if they think they see the opportunity to get themselves a quickie paycheck. And it seems that NBC is leading the charge to usher in a bumper crop of airheads on the airwaves to offend us with all of their nonsense. Joshua Johnson, not to be confused with Jason Johnson, whose mother happens to be affiliated with both the FBI and the police. But Joshua Johnson, who looks like he's in the same bed as Jonathan Capehart, apparently he's going to be getting his own little show on NBC. It's going to be a nightly primetime show. Oh, how happy days are here for the few bootlicks who thought that perhaps their butter biscuits from the white media had all dried up. There's one or two make-work jobs that they're giving to these clowns, because after all, with all of these black folks who are making trouble and it's not going away and the midterms are right around the corner, well, we got to find some way to try to get their attention. So we're going to flood the zone. That's what you're going to do. We're going to flood the zone with a couple of out front Negroes, and they're going to be spouting the party line, and hopefully that will have some kind of effect. It's been a long time since you had this many Negroes with a TV show on one of these white networks. And I'm not sure if we've necessarily had this many on any one single news network before. So they're going in heavy on this one, at least over at NBC they are. Make no mistake, when you see NBC giving token make-work jobs to Joke Reed and Jonathan putting on his Capehart and Tiffany Cross-Eyes and Zerlina and now this Joshua Johnson chump, that's how you know there's a program at work here. They didn't just decide that all these guys are so talented, they just got to give something to them. No, this is the white media running one of their usual racial political operations. Nothing but Caucasians is bellying up to the bar to see if they can lead the charge on counter-programming against the new voices of black media, because of the effect that we are having. That's fine by me. Let them continue throwing bad money after worse money. They're going to waste a lot of time and a lot of their finances just to teach themselves the same old lesson that they've had to learn so many times before. The reason that they have to keep trying to crown these bootlicks, our new spokespeople, and crown these idiots as being our leaders over and over again is because we're not listening to them. And no amount of repeating those lies is going to change that. Good day, and be one. Black media only exists because of you. If you appreciate the kind of uncompromising commentary and insight provided in places like this, then visit the Cash App and be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that.